Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast, brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use the promo code DNVR25 to save 25% off your first purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I'm your host, Drew Creasman, the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. With me, as always, is beat writer Patrick Lyons. And on this episode, we break down as best we can to the best of our ability a two-game series sweep at the hands of the Houston Astros for your Colorado Rockies, where they, checks notes, scored one run after scoring, I believe, 7,000 on the homestand leading up to it. And, Patrick, that was... if ever there were an illustration for what this season has been and for who these guys are and the identity they have carved out for themselves, I think it's been these last now 8 baseball games, basically, right?
They are indeed Mr. Hyde on the road. Immediately, once the bus pulls away from Coors Field, they become something else. And as we've been calling it this entire season, the Silver Linings podcast, I'm pretty sure we can also call episodes like this breaking down a breakdown, because the offense was broken down on the side of the road. We're able to scratch out a run, struggled with runners in scoring position, again, against a first place AL West team in the Astros, but nevertheless, with how good the Rockies had been playing, 5-1 at home over the last week, we all thought there's going to be some spillover, even a half, even a quarter. And unfortunately, that was not the case. The Coors Field hangover does not abide in that fashion. It doesn't say, oh, you get a certain percentage, you lose this much. And no, it can just go from blistering hot CJ Cron player of the week to easy W.
Yeah, it really lackluster. Like you said, there's some opportunities. They did actually, I still, by the way, I had to send AJ a message to remind him. I don't think you and I ever solidified a bet for the Rockies not getting no hit this year. AJ and I have some Hassel Cattle beef on the line. One of us is gonna have to buy the other a steak or some burger or something nice from Hassel Cattle Company. I obviously get it if the Rockies don't get no hit. He will get it if the Rockies do. And, this, again, in these games where you feel like, okay, earlier in the season they were getting totally dominated and you were truly worried about that. And that's why people like AJ were making these bets with me, where this is better, but only by so much, right? Like only in the smallest tangible way, because at the end of the day, they're 14th shutout of the year in game 1 of this set. The stat was, of course, going around, and shout out to Evan. And I'm not sure I ever even officially congratulated him on the show either for his new gig over at Purple Row. He's a big Final Fantasy guy too. So big shout outs to Evan, who I think was quick on the stat of the Rockies having been shut out on the road. And all of their shutouts, they have not been shut out at home, right? So 14 times they've been shut out this year, all of them on the road. And of course have 13 road wins. So they have been shut out on the road more than they've just managed to win the ball game. And that's absolutely brutal.
I would have also made the bet that they would not get no hit just for the odds of it happening. I think, and I felt we're maybe even alluding to it, this idea that they have the type of lineup where it wouldn't surprise you, because there's a lot of swing and miss in the lineup. And again, right, look back at the lineup that, Ubaldo Jimenez did it against, and you go, well, there's some good guys on that club, right? Some maybe more in the later edges of their career, some on the beginning edges, but it was a very good lineup. So I'm not going to say it could happen to anyone, but it more likely happens to a team that struggles offensively. And this Rockies lineup has enough holes in it that you go, yeah, it can happen on the right day or the wrong day, depending on which side of it you are. But again, with 81 games at Coors Field, that's almost no-hitter proof. And it's really just about the 81 that's on the road. And they haven't looked good.
There's
the bottom line is it's hard to throw a no-hitter. I mean, we sat here in the beginning of the season in early May and talked about, oh, there's all this problem. And You know what?
Yeah.
To a degree, there was, because the sticky substances have been taken out, and we have seen a lot less of it. But again, historically speaking, that was why I did not think we were more likely to go at the same rate and have 20 no-hitters, and it was more likely we were going to have none. And I think we had one no-hitter since then. But the Rockies are going to be on no-hitter watch going forward, and
I'm standing by my bet. I feel very confident I'm going to end up with that beef. Though I will say a 10-day IL stint for Raimel Tapia obviously makes you a little less comfortable when they got to go and get Taylor Motter, who, great story in some ways. I'm a sucker for these types of players. I always root super hard for these guys because they're the ones that have to really, cut through it to basically. He's been a rookie for 5 years, essentially. He's a 31-year-old. He's not a rookie, but he's not. He's basically been a career minor leaguer and cups of coffee here and there at a bunch of different teams, and is still trying to prove now at 31 years old that maybe he's got a major league career ahead of him. But still, you saw a guy who was pretty overmatched in some spots. He had a tough time and getting some big opportunities early. It would have been a great story if he'd come through. But yeah, having no tap in there for a minute. I'm a little worried about it, but I feel like I'm going to collect that beef on that one and on them not losing 100 games. I feel good about those bets coming through.
No, I definitely do like your odds on that as far as them not getting no hit. It's strange to say that they'd be on no hit watch because it's not the good type where you're like, oh, this will be fun. Maybe Marquez is going to throw a no-hitter. That's fun, but not when could potentially be your team. There's no Tapia, as you said, Brendan Rodgers, which he was a guy that was really staying hot. And I do want to ask, how many times have you watched Taylor Motter come to the plate or do something in the field and go, oh, nope. Nope, that's not Brendan Rodgers. That is a different person altogether. It's a different team. Same head, same hairdo, but it's a different person. Have you made that mistake a few times?
A couple of times, yeah. So I was at full disclosure, I was at trivia night at the DNVR bar on Tuesdays, and everyone should come down to trivia night. It was so much fun. It's a blast. We do sports, but there's also like pop culture and Colorado history that we've added in there. Like it's a whole lot of fun. We were having a time last night, and we were also, those of you that follow Ryan Koenigsberg, our guy RK on Twitter, saw the enormous tower of beer that we were drinking from.
It was holding up the roof. It was holding up the ceiling. I was kind of concerned if someone drank all of that, if the building would collapse. I'm guessing it didn't. I didn't see it on the news.
We were fine. We split it between like 7 people. It's like $15 for one of those things. It's enormous.
For a pillar. For a column of brewski.
That's right. So I was doing a lot of answering trivia questions, looking back up at the Rockies game. So I did actually legitimately a couple of times go, is that no? And then I looked, no, did Brod grow his hair out, or did he lighten it? Because it's a little bit lighter. And that was actually I was like, did he lighten his hair a little bit? And no. Because I'm going to be quite honest with everybody, even having followed his box scores and noting every time I go to see, is anyone doing well in AAA? And you go, man, this Taylor Motter has been really crushing it. I didn't know what he looked like. Again, completely honest with you, because we pay a little more attention to the guys who have prospect sets, who are hitting well in AAA when they're 22. Yeah. All right. I see you, Jacob. Since you're throwing out a couple of super chats, a reminder to everybody.
To the front of the line. You move to the front of the line, especially when we're talking about a guy like Taylor Motter, former shortstop, Brendan Rodgers, former shortstop. Who are the top 3 shortstops currently in MLB right now? Trevor Story's not on your list. Would that be correct?
That's what's tough, man. Coming into the year, he might have been number 1, arguably, on the list. But right now, at this moment, he's not in the top 3. If we're doing like a power ranking based on right now who you got, I feel like Marcus Semien and Trey Turner are honestly, and that's what's kind of funny is because those weren't the names coming into the year. It was all about Baez and Story and Correa, these impending free agents. And, Baez had a decent year. Correa's had a decent year. Story's having a down year. Lindor's obviously was having an awful year and has turned it around a little bit. Tatis, Colorado, of course, he's unfortunately missed time with injury. So because he's missed so much time, but even I think by WAR, he's still got to be near the top of the league. So yeah, but again, if you're like right this moment, because he hasn't been playing, I might go with Simeon, Turner. Who else? I feel like there's a big one.
I feel like you might be missing ya boy, Bo Bichette.
He's on my
kind of a big one. I know you're a Tim Anderson fan.
My guy. Yeah. How did I do that?
Fan. I would still put Tatis Jr. I know he's hurt. I mean, he's got to be in the top 3. I would also put in Trey Turner. Marcus Semien, we'll see what happens this offseason. If he's stuck at second base, right? He very well could go back over to shortstop. That's only because of Bichette. But the name of a guy that has just gotten almost slept on, I feel like, his entire career, and is one of those names that he's still young enough that I don't really think you need to start whispering for him to, start getting Hall of Fame mentions, because he's only, I think, 28 years old. Xander Bogaerts. Now, he's quietly put together a fantastic career. Came up at age 20, was a rookie at age 21, won a World Series with the Red Sox in 2018. He's been very consistent every single year. Has a season of 30 homers and 100 RBI in the same year. He's in my top 3 right now just for consistency. And again, only 28 years old. That's wild. But the crop of shortstops, superstar shortstops, isn't as deep as I feel like it may have been a couple years ago. Correa's still really great. He's on the young side. Story's just kind of having that down year. Corey Seager, he's also hurt, and Lindor's hurt. So if it is very much about right now, which that's what we're doing, there's some guys that, kind of go low on the pecking order a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, Jacob, because I saw you ask this earlier and you did do double super chat. Again, we really appreciate it. That jumps you to the front of the line. Your other question about the dinger situation, we actually covered a couple of episodes ago, but since I know you got on the YouTube, you can just go 2 episodes ago. We covered it right at the beginning, so we don't want to necessarily rehash that for everyone. But for anyone interested, we did talk about it. So we appreciate you. We appreciate you asking those questions. And yeah, you snuck Tim Anderson in there really quickly also. I've become a much, much bigger fan also of his, again, at the bar last night. I saw him beat out a basic bouncer to the third baseman on like a little bit of trouble guy getting the ball out of the glove. And that's all it took.
That's all it takes.
All it took. And he was like pulled in and everything. I was like,
I'm very excited to see him in Iowa. Well, not personally, but on television for the Field of Dreams game. That's going to be exciting.
And coming out of the right-handed batter's box. If Tim Anderson hit left-handed, I don't know how you'd ever get him out if he just hit the ball into the ground.
Would very much would be unfair. And you know what? Staying on topic, if we're talking about shortstops and we're talking about the Rockies this offseason, if Trevor Story does sort of spurn their qualifying offer, if he doesn't have a good final 8 weeks here, that's really good. He could be coming back to Colorado. I say for better or worse, only because there are folks saying, hey, let's get to that compensation pick. Let's get to building up the farm system a little bit, and then maybe even just adding trade pieces if you do believe in the current group of players with some of the other younger ones coming up in the next year or two. So it could go either way. But hey, maybe Marcus Semien is one of those guys that Colorado goes and there's a bag of money at him, and you never know.
There's a bunch of them. Someone's going to fall through the cracks. Not all of these guys, especially with an impending CBA negotiation that I think almost everyone believes is going to get really ugly. I think somebody there is going to fall through the cracks, or maybe sign early out of kind of a security, maybe for a little bit less, but sign early on before everything becomes a mess, not knowing what the next CBA is going to be. So yeah,
we're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah.
And for the free agent class this year, Correa, Javi Baez, who we didn't mention, Story. I think Didi Gregorius goes back on the market. Marcus Semien, you could throw back in as a shortstop, and Corey Seager, who now seems to be blocked by Trey Turner.
Yeah.
Unless they decide, hey, we'll have Justin Turner and Corey Seager playing third base. I don't know what they're going to do, but we'll see.
Yeah, they have too many good players. Those rat bastards. All right, so we do. I guess we toast our Breck brews on this day. I'm still on Strava Craft Coffee Hours, but we got Breck brews, we got Breck Celsius, and we toast them on this day to, I guess, Connor Joe and CJ Crone for coming up with a run, for getting them a run in this series. You got to be excited about that. Otherwise, you just got to enjoy your 15 can samplers of seltzers and Breck brews. You can get some down at your local King Supers, at a liquor store. You got a much bigger one. Not the big tall thing is different, but you get a 22 ounce for no extra charge, just for being a member of the DNVR.com. This is one of many, many perks you get for becoming a member today. Sign up for that annual subscription. Get access to written content. You get a free shirt. You get discounts emailed to you regularly. Just, hey, you see the new hats we just dropped? It's got this logo that both Patrick and I, we hadn't had this one on a hat before. That has jumped to the top of my priority list. That was the one, for those of you that remember back when we were talking about it, where my fiance goes, all right, you need that hat. Yes, I do.
If you show up to the bar with a friend and you're not a member and you're like, honestly, I just want to DNVR up my brewski to go from 16 to 22 ounces, you could just have a membership for that. Like, that's okay too, and get discounts on all the gear, and it's going to pay for itself. So, we are not going to be offended if you're not reading our content and joining and all that. If you're just like, look, it's just like having a Costco membership. It's not like I just love Kirkland hot dogs and buy all Kirkland brand stuff. I'd be a fool to just pass up this opportunity. If you want to think of us as Costco for your sports entertainment, well, I think that's a compliment.
Yeah, fine with it. 100% fine with it. So do subscribe today at the DNVR.com. We'll hook you up with all kinds of fantastic deals, including some of our sponsors like Manscaped. You know about Manscaped. I'm sure you've heard about Manscaped, and fellas, it's necessary at this point. It's no longer one of those things. It's not like one of those in vogue, chic trends that's going on. Basically, it's a requirement these days. You got to get Manscaped, especially in the summertime. You're going to feel better. You're going to smell better. Whoever's taking care of you is going to feel better and smell better. and it's just going to be better for everybody involved. You got to get that lawnmower 4.0. Get the trimmer. You can get some spritzer. Really comfortable pair of boxers. Check them out. You'll get free shipping plus 20% off if you use promo code DNVR at manscaped.com. Again, it's 20% off plus free shipping with code DNVR at manscaped.com. Oh, wow. All right. Jacob coming in hard and fast. We're not going to say no to you throwing the super chats at us. We will answer those questions. Feel bad about taking over the show. No, especially, look, man, they scored one run the last couple of days. We can break down those baseball games for you all you want, but if you guys are interested in other stuff, that's totally fine.
Yeah, we'll get to John Gray. We'll get to Antonio Senzatela. We'll get to our king of the game.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of good stuff, but I do like this question. This is interesting, and I think my opinion has changed over time. What do you think about this? Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, known steroid users. They went to court. It was proven that they used these performance-enhancing drugs and did everything they could to try to hide it, naturally, I guess. But should those guys be in the Hall of Fame? Drew, what do you think?
No. And it's hard because I completely understand anybody whose answer to this question is yes. It's a museum of baseball history, glossing over the negative parts that some people, especially, there is an element of hypocrisy to it when there were writers who didn't do anything about it at the time, the commissioner who didn't do anything about it at the time, who's in the Hall of Fame. And so I 100% accept the validity of every single one of those arguments about why someone would vote for or have no problem with Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens in the Hall of Fame. For me personally, it's almost painfully too simple on the other side. And it's, they cheated. They know they cheated. Neither's ever been remorseful about it. It did tarnish the game. And, you know, this is one of those things, and this has come up recently and kind of resurfaced for whatever reason with the Houston Astros sign stealing scandal, where people like to point out that other people did it too. And that's irrelevant. That is a logical fallacy in and of itself. It's both a non sequitur and a straw man. You can't cross apply that logic to having done wrong anywhere else in life. We've arrested somebody for having knocked over a liquor stand. You can't stand in court and say, well, other people have knocked over liquor stores and gotten away with it. Like, well, yeah, but that doesn't mean that the person that we have in cuffs, we have proof did the thing, doesn't get in trouble. And so that's basically what it is. Like, they know what they did. In my view, the victims of it were always the people who didn't use during that time. And a lot of people whose names we don't know, whose careers were ruined because they chose to do the right thing. And I always thought that was the part of it that got left out. When people want to say, well, it's no big deal because it was the era and everyone did it, so let them in because it was just a sign of the times. It's like that, I feel like, takes away agency from the people who really did get screwed out of better or longer careers because they didn't participate in the cheating that was going on. And so, you know, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and Ryan Braun, these people aren't giving back any wins. They're not giving back any awards. They're not giving back any money. So I think if we withhold one award, achievement, honor from them, I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with the withholding of the prestige of the Hall of Fame, holding that off for a decade or so. So I'm actually in favor of those guys getting the Hall of Fame, but not on a ballot. I think I would vote for those guys. I think they've paid some of their due. Maybe not all of it. Maybe not necessarily everything that would be just. I think it's well known and well documented, their story and their the trials and tribulations that they put other people through, because it wasn't even just them doing steroids and whatnot. Baseball looked the other way, and those guys, I'm not even going to say took advantage of it. They did, but a lot of other people did as well, and that really falls on MLB. Drew, you did make a great argument. The fact that the commissioner is in from that time seems like, oh, okay, that's kind of water under the bridge. So if it's water under the bridge for the guy that could have made the biggest difference of them all, then I think those that they're actually floating on the water, I think, you know,
Sure.
and I think those two guys might even be more exceptions than anything, because we know they had a really good career before we definitively know they started using performance-enhancing drugs. Maybe they were taking it before then. That's fine. But and we also know that guys like Mickey Mantle in his era, they took amphetamines. That was legal at the time, and nobody talks about that. And rightfully so. Like, I'm okay with that. I don't know where that fits in the game and kind of rehashing that piece in a sense. I think, you know, steroids is still something that permeates our society, and Jacob even mentioned stuff about kids doing it today. So I think there's still a lot of work that has to get done, and I think that's why it's a lot more important. But I think eventually we could get to a spot in which steroids becomes this other thing, like amphetamines and the greenies, and it's like, oh man, that was a whole other era and a whole other world.
Right.
Those guys have paid their dues enough. Let's put them in the proper hall, because they're already plastered all around the museum.
Yeah, and you just reminded me, and Wildly Innocent jumping in on that part of it too, with the Field of Dreams coming back up, and that's I also feel like you got to let Shoeless Joe Jackson in the Hall of Fame before you let, you know, with the thing again, he threw 7 games, or it was 9-game World Series back then, right? So they threw a 9-game World Series, and how much role did he actually have in all of that? whatsoever, versus these other guys who went about breaking the rules systematically for years on end and like totally messed up the record books and all this stuff. So yeah. And then, and Jacob, and I hate to say it, and that's the funny thing is, like, for me, if you're going to go that way, if you're going to go full baseball museum, history museum, everybody in, yeah, Pete Rose also, yeah, with Jacob and Samuel here in the comments. And I'm not a Pete Rose guy. I'm really, really not. But if you're going full throttle and letting, I think if Clemens and Bonds get in, Shoeless Joe Jackson and Pete Rose have to go in first, if that even makes any sense. Like, I'm splitting hairs here about what matters.
I disagree wholeheartedly, only because, again, you look at the 1919 Black Sox, how that changed the game, and how still to this day in 2021, the first day of spring training, guys are ultimately read the riot act saying, look, you cannot gamble, you cannot do all this. Now MLB as an entity can, and we're going to establish all these different places in the ballpark where you can go.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That's a topic for another day.
Have sponsorship deals with.
But it's been 100 years since that thing has gone down, and the game has been impacted because of it, and that's very well known.
I mean, we're going to have steroid testing forever. The game has been impacted because of it, and no one's ever going to hit 70 home runs ever again.
No, I agree. Well, I'm talking about the response from MLB, or rather the American League and the National League at that time, to gambling was something that would have totally destroyed the game to the point at which no one would even care about it anymore. It's something that's happened to various professional leagues in Asia. I believe that, like, the Chinese soccer league is something that I don't even think you can gamble on, because the matches are just fixed so much. And that's an extreme example, but that was what baseball didn't want to happen, was there would be zero credibility. And while that did ultimately end up happening in the 90s and the 2000s, where that credibility was lost, it didn't wipe the game away. And now they've created rules because of it. So there would be that equal importance, but no one sits down with a representative from MLB saying, if you gamble, you will be banned for life. Like, these guys were banned for life. Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds was the hitting coach for the Marlins for a season. So these guys weren't banned, whereas Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe were banned. And even look at the Houston Astros guys and some of the Boston Red Sox. As awful as what they did, they were welcomed back into the fold. Maybe partially because other people did it, whether that's right or wrong. That does let you understand. That does let you understand the magnitude to which those two things are.
That really just tells you the different
and the 1990 Black Sox
people. That to me, that just gives way too much power into the hands of whoever is commissioner at the time. The fact that Bud Selig absolutely failed to handle the steroid scandal in any meaningful way doesn't make that less of a scandal to me. Or you could even argue that
it's changed the game. I agree with you. Right, it has changed the game. They have created rules because of it. But if we're talking about the Astros, and we've talked about this before too on previous podcasts, like, it's almost not even close. It's like saying LeBron James and Giannis. Like, one is an inner ring Hall of Famer in the NBA, and another one is a fantastic ball player that might even go into the Basketball Hall of Fame. That being said, they're a mile apart as far as talents go. And there's a mile difference between the 1919 Black Sox and the 2017 Houston Astros. And history is continuing to tell us that.
I disagree 1,000%.
AJ Hinch is managing. Alex Cora is managing.
Again,
all these players are still playing. Shoeless Joe, it's been 100 years.
On it. I just don't care about any of that.
For a long time, and he's still banned.
I know.
That tells you all you need to know.
It doesn't. It might tell you all you need to know, but I care about a lot of other things and couldn't care less. That just tells me how the commissioner responded. That's all it tells me. And I don't care.
But all the commissioners after the 1919 Black Sox haven't overturned it at all. They still feel the same way.
The way other people responded to the situation has no bearing.
It's an industry. It's not just a person. It is an industry.
Okay. Still, again, I don't. That doesn't have any bearing to me. On
August 11th, 2021, Drew. Go back and go listen to this. We can both listen to this in 20 years, and we'll see how many people are really up in arms over the
Patrick.
2017 Houston Astros, right? Because won't time tell us?
That's not my barometer. You're insisting that I use your barometer for what makes a scandal bad, and I don't. I have a completely different barometer. I don't care if
we know about that.
Okay, I know. I'm just saying. I'm allowed to not care that the commissioner completely failed to handle the thing in the 90s. And I still think that was actually, I think that the Astros thing was worse, but that's a whole other thing because it was systematic, because it was purposeful, because it went on for a lot longer, and because it deprived more people of fairness. For me, that's much worse. It's like your LeBron Giannis argument. It's much clearer to me in the other direction, because a scandal is determined by how many people were wronged by it. And in my estimation, far more people were wronged by what the Houston Astros did than by what the Black Sox did. And the fact that the Black Sox thing was responded to more negatively doesn't change it for me. For me, scandal is as bad as the number of people who were wronged by it. Simple as that. And so, yeah, I mean, how other people feel or don't feel about it, it's the same way of like whether or not I loved a movie and everybody else hated it. It's like, okay, but that doesn't make the movie bad. So,
okay. Well, we'll have to wait and see how many movies are made about the Astros. But again, that's a different barometer. You're right. It's a different barometer.
I don't care if other people don't care. I think they should, but I can't make them care. But yeah, the fact that, and again, like that just gives too much. It just gives too much power to like Rob Manfred to have totally screwed this whole thing up. And then we just go, well, okay, I guess if he didn't care, we shouldn't care. And it's like, that sucks. That just makes it 10 times worse.
But just remember, it's not just him. It's he's representing all of the 30 owners. It's not just one guy.
I am well aware. I am well aware.
You know what does suck?
Baseball owners collectively.
You know what does suck? Watching the Astros game last night against the Rockies, and just when you think you're done with Pedro Baez, he makes his debut with the Astros. That was his first game. That was his first game with Houston.
Oh, it was RK. I was like, who asked me the question? Again, I was at the trivia, and RK goes, didn't that guy pitch for the Dodgers? And I turned around and went, Pedro Baez? I said, yeah, he did.
He takes so long between every pitch. I mean, he did end up getting a double play to end it, because if he didn't, it could have gone on forever. And then the Rockies still might not have even scored. And it was like, wow, that was a 10-minute inning for no. He's one of the most frustrating pitchers. And for Rockies fans, he definitely has to be towards the top of the list.
He's just so slow. Yeah, Rafael Betancourt all over again. Pretty brutal. But at least today's game went by pretty quick, and that means that we've got to give a shout out to some of the starting pitching. And it isn't obviously a weird one, but today's draft king of the game does have to. Well, first of all, it had to be the starting pitcher in this case. The offense didn't really do much, and though again, nothing to write home about here. 6 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, a walk, and 3 strikeouts for Antonio Senzatela. He really did not have his best stuff. Obviously, his slider was flat coming out early. He was getting 0 swings and misses. I think he got 1 swing and miss the first 2 times through the order. He just didn't have his best stuff, but he was able to figure out how to power through it, change up the strategy a little bit, go more to the curveball since his slider wasn't working for him. He refuses to walk people, again, just the 1 on the day. And when you thought maybe early on he wasn't going to be able to get out of there, he ends up with a quality start. And when you can basically just count on your 5th starter to get a quality start just about every time out, that's pretty extraordinary. And so, and when he doesn't even have his best stuff, going up against a lineup that's ranks number 1 in a whole bunch of categories, he wasn't fooling them. And so he just had to find ways to beat them. And going 6 and only giving up 3, giving his team a chance to win the game, theoretically, giving another offense at least theoretically a chance to win the game. You got to tip your cap to our draft king of the game, Antonio Senzatela.
That was Colorado's 53rd quality start of the season. It's actually should move them ahead of Milwaukee, who they were tied with for third in all of MLB. A's are actually first with 60 and Dodgers have 58. But that just goes to show you, again, consistency. Look, we know that a Coors Field quality start isn't even 6 innings and 3 earned runs, right? It's you take 5 innings and maybe 4 earned runs. So the fact that they're doing it using the barometer that MLB typically likes to use for a quality start is even that much more impressive, that they're staying in these games. And again, you have an offense there that can just do a little bit here and there. You're going to be doing that much better. They actually dropped to 35 and 18 when their starting pitcher has a quality start, which is pretty good. But I would be curious to see what, Oakland and LA's record when they get a quality start. You got to think it's going to be a lot better than that, because they're winning. They're also winning ball games when their starter stinks up the joint. They're coming back to win some of those games. Rockies not as much.
Yeah, that is really interesting because you go, how many times is 18 times the Rockies have had their starter go out there, throw a quality start, and them still end up losing the baseball game. That's bad offense and bullpen, as we all are aware, as we all have witnessed throughout the season. So actually, Sam, that's an interesting question. We'll have to go and find how it compares quality starts by Rockies in other seasons, especially once we actually start to wrap this thing up, because they've just been a very consistent group. And this is, just another reminder. And Buddy was really, like, I would say more than frustrated or irritated. He was just kind of annoyed in the post game today, because I think he just knows that, like, this offense just isn't good enough. Like, when they're at their absolute best, they can produce on the road. And because these guys are legit big leaguers, they can produce at home, but they're not consistent enough, and they don't have the veteran top end talent enough to do it. So this is just going to keep happening. and it's why, people get, and he keeps getting asked the question, how can you guys score all these runs at home and then not on the road? And he can't answer that question honestly and just say, well, because guys like Connor Joe and Taylor Motter and, Sam Hilliard, and these guys are dealing with this weird phenomenon for the very first time. And they might, as it is, all be quadruple A guys to begin with. So now you're tasking them with the most difficult dynamic in hitting a baseball anywhere. The chances of them coming through, it was hard for Nolan and DJ and these guys to deal with it. And Charlie talks about it. So when you're a rookie who's still just trying to prove you belong on any level, it's that much tougher. And they don't have an answer for it. It's why they're talking right now about going out and signing veteran bats in the offseason. And these are the kinds of games that flash through their heads as theoretically winnable. And it's, we can all argue back and forth, but you look at these last 2 games against a first place team. It's been good for quite a while. And I would argue they were both winnable baseball games if you had a couple of solid veterans in this lineup to back up the pitching that you're getting. So I get where their heads are at. They're Senzatela, these guys, they keep giving them the chance to win, as they like to put it. As Buddy kept saying after the game today. Gave us a chance to win, but there's nothing they can do. This road offense is going to scratch and claw for what they can for the rest of the season, but they're just not good enough.
Bottom of the 6th today in Wednesday's game, McMahon got hit by pitch. Taylor Motter, nice professional AB, drew the walk, only 1 out. Runner on first and second, down a run. Hampson and Hilliard, couldn't get the job done. And so with Tapia on the IL, this was happening even with Tapia in the lineup. It is what it is. But, now with Rogers out of the lineup, Daza not in his, the groove that he was once in. And, equally, it should be noted, because I think depth and health are 2 of the biggest things that can be the difference for just about any team, at least when they're contending, is having depth and then having the good health where, you can get away with it. Because 2018, I was pretty critical of the fact that they didn't go out and get any veteran, to compete maybe for the 5th starter spot or to stash down there in Albuquerque. They had Brett Oberholtz, so that's it. And guess what? They didn't end up needing it. They had basically 6 guys make all of their starts. And so I'm not saying they got away with one, but again, you either need health or you need the minor league depth. And unfortunately, the Rockies don't have the minor league depth in the upper reaches of the minor leagues. AA, starting to see some of those guys from high A get promoted and move up, but they're still a year, maybe even more away. And so that's another one of those problems why, as Buddy essentially was alluding to, hey, it's just still going to be the same old thing going forward. There's really no other options.
One caveat to that, and I still think it's a little too early for Ryan Valade, and I want to leave him doing what he's doing. But Colton Welker, back up to AAA, hit his first home run at the AAA level last night after serving his odd suspension that we'll maybe have a chance to talk about in more detail later. But so that's maybe the one thing you can kind of get excited about is maybe a bat. But still, trying to ask a rookie to be like your solution to why you can't hit on the road,
right?
Not a good call. So that's why they're talking about veteran hitters. So go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Take your bets on whether or not the Colorado Rockies can get some veteran hitters. I actually don't think you can bet on that right now, but you can bet whether or not they're going to hit some home runs, get some hits, the over-unders on some strikeouts, who's going to win the baseball game. Right now, basically, look, life hack, folks. You want to win some money? Do you like free money? Bet on the Rockies to win at home and lose on the road. You're welcome. You've made money. Congratulations. It's a whole lot of fun, though. It can make watching the sports that much more interesting when you've got a little bit of skin in the game. It can also, at sometimes, fatten up your wallet just a little bit. Quite a bit of fun. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code DNVR to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any college football game. That's promo code DNVR to get your free $200 in free bets instantly for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. You can also bet on whether or not it's time for them Colorado XO. I think you can bet on rugby. You've got to be able to bet. I don't know. I think the XOs are wrapped up for this season. But they've got this Rugby Town Sevens coming to it's August 20th through 22nd. I'm going to see if I got to double check if the Rockies are at home for that. The Rockies are out of town. Oh, you're muted if you were jumping in there. Oh,
yeah, no, that's like World Cup type stuff. Like the Rugby Sevens is again, you're a lot of top talent. Even if it's like a friendly, even I think Mile High hosted a game of Barcelona was going to be there, and even if all the top stars or Manchester United, even if they're going to rest their first team, their second team is still amazing. You want to be there for an event like that. All 3 days if you can. All 3 days, August 20th through 22nd.
Yeah, that's going to be so much fun. I've had a lot of fun going out to Infinity Park. You should check them out at infinitypark@glendale.com/events to see when they're doing movie nights. They've had like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse out there recently. That was a lot of fun. And also check in with our guys at the DNVR Rugby Podcast. Colton Strickler doing a fantastic job. Justin Michael hopping on there with regularity. He's fantastic. You know him from obviously covering CSU Rams for us. They do a fantastic job. I've had a lot of fun on that show before. If you want to learn about rugby, can't do it in any better spot.
And you'll learn more about Team Italy in rugby because can they pull maybe the biggest upset in sports history? And I'm only basing that on DNVR, or rather the DraftKings Sportsbook, because in the 2022 Six Nations, so it's coming up in February, you've got Scotland is 1,000 to 1 to win that rugby tournament. And yet they are not the biggest upset. Italy is plus 100,000. So, folks, you may cover the cost of your tickets for August 20th to 22nd to find out, could Italy do this? They're plus 100,000.
I've never heard of such a thing.
You and I should be like plus 90,000.
Right.
I'm thinking in this tournament. I mean, again, we're obviously going to recruit other players, but still, if we have to be on the pitch,
are they like the District
we're running the team
of international rugby? What's going on?
How can you be plus 100,000? Italy right now. So maybe now you want to pay
$5.
attention to rugby a bit. Maybe pay attention to rugby.
Oh my goodness. All right. And Mark, talking about if you're going to go out on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Now, we didn't do this at the beginning of the road trip, so we've only got 3 games left and they're already over. So 0, 1, 2 wins on the road trip. I like that Mark didn't even ask for the possibility of 3. So didn't even put on the table a 3 or a 4 game sweep here. Just 0, 1, or 2. What are we thinking?
Originally, I thought the over-under would be 1.5. And I would have taken the over. I would have said they would have won 2. Yeah. Now, again, the mojo's gone.
Yeah.
1 win.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 1.
Yeah. I think that's right. I think, I think they can win 2. And I think it would be funny and interesting. And again, you start getting into the spoiler stuff. When you start messing with the first place team in the NL West that like nobody else has been able to, because I kept thinking, this has been fun, but when the Giants have to play directly against the Dodgers and the Padres, that's when it's going to start getting tougher for them. Like they've handled themselves perfectly well. It's wrecking them just fine. So, okay. But if they falter against the Rockies too, especially if both the Padres and Giants struggle against the Rockies this year, I would very much enjoy that storyline.
How many did you take? How many wins are you going to go with? 1 or 2? 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the matchups that we got, which is the one that they could win if we're just looking at matchups. Thursday night, Logan Webb against Herman Marquez.
That's a pretty good matchup for the Rockies. That's
going to be the one.
Yeah.
Friday is going to be your boy Anthony DeSclafani against Austin Gomber. Saturday is going to be Sammy Long. Don't know either. Against Kyle Freeland, and then on Sunday, Alex Wood against John Gray. That one's a maybe.
I hate going against Alex Wood. Actually, they could get 2 of those. Games 1 and 3, even game 4, like you said, very winnable stuff. And I counted out Gomber on that. By the way, I was very sad we did not get Framber versus Gomber, but
Ooh, would have been nice. Both lefties too. Both left-handers.
Yeah, one day. It's going to be tough to match it up if they're in different leagues. There, we're going to have to get Framber versus Gomber.
And do we see Connor Joe play first base and bat leadoff again?
Oh yeah,
that'll happen.
I think so. I think that's going to be until Tapia comes back. I think we'll see that 1 or 2 more times actually.
So he could break the franchise record.
Yeah,
because as we know, back in 2018, Ian Desmond batted leadoff once and played first base. I'm calling it first. Or double one.
First. Yeah.
He did 1-1. He played first, batted first. That was against the Cubs. Mike Kingery once did it against the Cubs as well, and he did it a second time. So he actually did it twice in 1995, I believe was the year. So those are the only times it's ever happened. Now Connor Joe's on that list. There's 3 of them. Amazing. Connor Joe, 1 more. He ties the record. 2 more. He has the record. The record no one knows about or cares about, except anyone around on this podcast, I think. I care about it. I find it interesting. They've had a lot of course
really
going on in their lineup this year. I like it. I think it's fun.
Yeah. And pretty rare just in general, not just for the Rockies. I find that stuff fun. Jacob with another super chat for us, asking if we could have one MLB record, like if we could set like the home run record, because like that's the go-to, right? I mean, the home run record is one of the greatest records in all of sports. So it's hard to argue with being able to have set that. Like that'd be a cool thing to have if you could just have one. Strikeouts are fun, but I mean, how many people actually even know who holds? That's one of those things that we know Cy Young with wins because we named the award after him.
Most strikeouts? Nolan Ryan.
Yeah. Well, I know who has the most.
All right. Good comeback. You put me in my place in a weird way, but yeah, you're right. I know you know. Okay, yeah.
I know you.
You're just putting it out there. Like no one. Yeah, most people probably might not.
But again, yeah. I mean, even decent. I think people know that Nolan. I think actually more people know that Nolan Ryan has the most no hitters than the most strikeouts. So I almost feel like he's more famous for having done that because he was throwing no hitters when he was like 40 years old and stuff. So yeah, okay. So you want the hitting streak? It looks like Dave, the Wild the Instant, also looking for consecutive
57 consecutive games to break Joe
Okay.
DiMaggio's record in 1941. The MLB record I would like to own, I Love Mickey by Teresa Brewer and Mickey Mantle, the 1956 hit recording called I Love Mickey. That would be the record I would like to have.
Get out of here. This guy's fired. The stolen base one also, I always thought was kind of sick, right? Like that's a pretty cool one to be able to do. So when Ricky like grabs the bag and is like, "This is mine now. I'm the greatest of all time." Like that's one of the greatest moments in sports history.
With Lou Brock right in his face. I just saw something that showed. So if a guy stole 60 bases this year, you'd be like, that guy's a speedster.
Wow,
that's really impressive. 60's somewhat of a rarity. I mean, only Willie Flores in Rockies franchise history was able to do that. Well, you would need to steal 60 bases in 22 consecutive seasons in order to match Ricky Henderson at this point. That's crazy.
That is crazy. All right. And last one, because I saw him ask it earlier and I wanted to leave it till the end of it. And Jacob's been fantastic with the super chats. We love you. We appreciate you. Remember to get in on us. Again, everybody here on the YouTube's live. But he wants an indie ref story from you, Patrick. He needs an indie wrestling. We haven't talked any wrestling on the show today. We're at the end. Fun indie wrestling ref story. You having trouble thinking of one?
Well, no, I got one, but I was trying to think if I have one that I witnessed and I wasn't a part of, so it doesn't totally.
Oh no, we need one that you were a part
egocentric.
of. No. It's no. I'm taking all the blame off of your shoulders for any of this being egocentric. We want to hear a story involving you directly in an indie wrestling match as a referee. Not just something you saw. You have to be involved in this story.
All right. Well, the second most notable wrestler I ever did a match with was named Balls Mahoney. And I watched ECW, but he was almost like a second tier guy. And I think he started getting a big name for himself, like after some of the ECW guys already started appearing on WWF television at the time. Right. Taz had already come over. So ECW kind of had been pillaged to a degree. So I didn't know his stuff very well. And, you know, when he came out, everyone was singing his song, got the big pop. Didn't really do much in the match, but he got paid pretty well. And my biggest takeaway in the match, he was a very happy-go-lucky guy. I ran into him one other time. He was at a bar just going to town on wings. And I was just like, hey, Balls. And hey, you know, like almost like he remembered me from this random match he had 4 years prior. He didn't. He was just that happy-go-lucky of a guy. And we're talking about the spots in a stairwell at some university in Monmouth County. If you dig up the references, you figure that out. And he's talking and doing the spots. And then even when he stopped talking, I couldn't stop looking at him because his forehead, from all the times he had been hit with a chair and bled, or used a razor and cut his forehead and bled on a night in, night out basis, his forehead looked like a rotten apple. Just the scar tissue, and it just hadn't healed, and it was red and blue and purple, and it really looked like I could just put my thumb right through his forehead, and I really wanted to. I really wanted to go, Balls, hold on, like maybe lick my thumb, you know, like your great aunt or your grandma would if you had something on your cheek. I'm gonna go, hey, you got something on your forehead, and just see if my thumb would go right in through to his scalp.
Just right through.
That's my Balls Mahoney story.
Balls Mahoney. There it is. Jacob, you'll have to wait till next time to hear about number one, I guess. So yeah, and Will, we've seen the Abdullah the Butcher. We're well aware. He actually came out. My fiance has got some Abdullah the Butcher pictures, photos.
I watch deathmatch. I actively watch deathmatch wrestling, and I don't know why. I don't know why. I do. It was a big couple of days for Nick Gage against Matt Cardona, And then he was on AEW Dynamite against Chris Jericho. They put him over great.
Saw that. That was cool, but I have a hard time with it.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. No,
Guys
thank
are
you.
amazing. All right. Well, thanks for that, everybody. We really do appreciate y'all hanging out, helping to make this show a fun one, considering there wasn't a whole lot going on with the Rockies inside these baseball games last couple of days. That's why you all being a part of this community really is so important, why we appreciate you following along on the YouTube, clicking the bell icon so you know when we're going live, joining the conversation so that you can impact it and ask us questions and hang out with us live. You can also subscribe to the DNVR.com for all that written content, discounts, free shirt, access to the Discord channel, all the fantastic stuff that you get. Come on out to Trivia Night. It's so much fun. And make sure you don't forget about planning your fantasy football parties with us down at the DNVR bar. Email gm@thednvrbar.com for any of your questions or comments about that. Thank you all. Oh, social media. At Drew Creasman, at Patrick B. Lyons, at DNVR_Rockies. You know what it is. We appreciate you all for being absolutely fantastic and amazing baseball fans out there. We promise you that we will continue to be absolutely Patrick Lyons and Drew Creasman in here. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.